Canine therapy, a lot of people have done different things with dogs and animals, for many decades. For Capstone, it began with, my dog Fred when I was little, because I know how important Fred was to me. And I had other dogs before then, but he's the first one that had the 12-year run and, was the dog that I was with when I was down and didn't want to be around people and got in the boat or in the truck, etc. So I knew how important dogs were, and throughout my life, they were like that. I coached for 14 years and would see different kids that would have their dog, and it was the same thing that I had with mine. And then in the 90s, in the beginning of development of this model in my private practice, I would have a lot of clients that have gone through sexual abuse, and started with the minority of them, because the majority could not do this. If a person had been seductively sexually abused, some of them were able to get Labrador Retriever dogs because they're unbelievably beautiful and smart, and they're loyal and trustworthy, and they're just so loving. With some people that I worked with, some clients that had been forcibly sexually abused, some of them needed more than the lab as far as protection, and there were some of them that were able to get German Shepherd puppies and train them to sleep in the basket by their bed. And the effect was phenomenal with that. So just from the pragmatic point of view, that's where canine therapy at Capstone started. When you start looking at the research on canine therapy, which I don't know anybody that does it like we do it. I've taught in a grad program in marriage and family therapy for 18 years, and Bonnie Phillips, who's one of the clinical directors here, was a student back in the mid-90s, and I hate to date her that far back, but she did the first actual research paper on animal-assisted therapy and started seeing how other people had used it. And to this time, I don't think I've ever seen anybody use it like we do, because when our guys come in, we give them a registered, AKC registered Labrador Retriever puppy. And the first thing in the morning and the last thing in the evening before they go to showers, they go and care for that puppy as far as its food, its water, cleaning its bin, etc. But during the middle of the day, they have a time for canine therapy, which we call puppy time, on the schedule. And they go and spend an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the day schedule, with their puppy. And they have about a 5 or 10 minute training protocol, because that's about all the attention their dog can have at this age. And they spend the rest of the time just kind of chilling out with their dog. And it's been a phenomenal thing for guys while they're here, because they have something that loves them, doesn't ask them therapy questions, always listens, always likes them, always wants to kiss them and, love on them and be with them. And you'll see a kid laying in the grass and this wad of fur on his chest asleep. You'll see somebody out there throwing a ball and the dog retrieving and just playing and having fun. So it's really an important part of decompressing after tough therapy sessions. We also bring the dogs, some of them, into session with the boys. If a boy's in a tough disclosure place in therapy, some of the puppies can come in and really do a great job in comforting that boy while they're there. Some of them are still a little bit too wild to do that at that point. We've had, honestly, several boys that came to Capstone that actually their parents got them here because they were going to get a puppy. So it's also very beneficial for them to look on the website and see this and know that they're going to get a puppy. It's kind of been something we didn't really plan on. It's not like a carrot we really dangle out there, but it has served that function with people. But the real reason we do canine therapy is the brain and triggers. If a person is addicted to cocaine and 6 months from now somebody pours baby powder out on a glass top table, they're going to be triggered, out the wazoo. There's an effect of the brain that when we see things that are isomorphic or remind us of prior experiences, it creates a feeling inside. It creates memories, flashcards that go through your head. So this puppy is with this boy either on the first day he gets here, within a couple days from admission, and goes through family week and all the different modules that we have at Capstone through treatment. And then he takes it home with him. Every time he goes out to play with that dog or feed that dog or be with that dog, and we have a lot of our guys that they're just with the dog all the time, it reminds them, without them even thinking of it consciously, of everything they experienced at Capstone. So we want to use that as that trigger for the good stuff. The other side of it is, in relapse prevention, the dog is huge, because when a boy is getting to the point that he's being triggered and could go to a relapse if something doesn't change, we have a plan that we teach them, relapse prevention plan, that is, you got to get with somebody. Well, sometimes you get stuck and there's no person for you to get around. We've got hundreds of stories where the boy got with their dog, and that relationship is what helped the direction to turn so that they didn't go toward the relapse. And most of our guys get super attached to their dogs. There's been some that didn't get attached to their dog, but it's been vast minority. Coolest part, or the most beneficial part, or the strongest part, is the relationship with the dog. That was mine with my dogs growing up, is that relationship. When you hear, dog is man's best friend, and that really is got a lot of substance to it, because the relationship with the animal and the dog, and when you read the research on animal-assisted therapy, you see that the dog reflects the human a lot, like a horse in equine therapy would reflect the human a lot. But when you get a relationship with a dog, and most people that have ever had a dog understand this, your mood, not even if you say anything, your mood affects that dog's mood. And that dog's going to tend to you when your mood is down. And the relational aspect of this is not just, oh, now he's got a buddy so he doesn't have to go out with the guys that are smoking pot. That's true, but it's much deeper than that, because in the brain, our boys come here most of the time without having deep, quality, intimate relationships. And they are loved deeply by their parents, but a lot of times those deep love relationships don't mean deep core-to-core relationships, but they for sure come here without deep peer relationships. And so they're playing ball together, they're smoking dope together, they're having fun together, they're listening to music together, but they don't have that real deep quality relationship aspect to it. With these dogs, they can get that. But what that does is that it starts to stimulate neural pathways in the brain called attachment neural pathways. Many of our guys have attachment issues of not being able to be connected at that deep level. A lot of boys have attention deficit, the ADHD, which we don't even look at as a disorder because it's simply a different way of processing information, and I think it's a gift. But a lot of times those guys are so fast on the jazz, if you will, that relationship with other people, and to slow it down and to talk, they've not developed those attachment neural pathways. Some of our boys that have been relinquished, some boys that have been abused, they've got brain damage from those attachment neural pathways not being developed. And this dog actually does that. The neuroplasticity of the young brain means it can grow new neural pathways, and the dog helps a lot in the attachment. And probably the thing that, you say, what's the best thing about it? We could just sit here and name names and names and names of families where there's an argument that comes somewhere in there when the boy's moving away from home on where's the dog going, because the parents fall in love with the dog. We had a family reunion this last weekend, and some parents were talking about, I'm not sure what's going to happen because I want the dog to stay with me. And what we've seen is not only parents getting directly connected to the dog, but the dog being a factor that brings the family together. Because when it's a trigger for the boy and everything that happened at Capstone, it's also a trigger for the family and everything that happened at Capstone. So there's a little bit of a rallying point for the family after here. And we've got 10 years of history on that. We have boys that have been out of Capstone for 10 years that they still have their dog, and it still means something to them. I had one come to my house not long ago whose wife's dog had died. And his dog is 10 years old, and he came over and he was just torn apart. And he said, what if that was Roscoe? It still means that much to him 10 years later. So, we've got 10-year history on this. And when you look back at that 10-year history and see all the different stories that go on, we know we have boys that are alive that wouldn't be without their dogs. And one of the things we kind of say tongue-in-cheek about it is that the dog is the best aftercare therapist of all time. Never ask stupid questions, is always there for you, is always available. You don't have to wait till their work hours. You can, get them 24/7. And while that's a little tongue-in-cheek, it's also quite a bit the truth. That friendship that has gone on with those boys has been a saving grace for many of them.